Welcome back to Race Report, everyone. Firstly, I'll have to apologise for my microphone quality. I am on a trip again at the moment. But never mind that, we've just seen one of the races of the season. Boy, there's so much to go over. Monza really is special, isn't it? Last year it gave us Gasly, and this year, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get stuck straight in. Coming into the week, of course, we had contract news for Bottas, Russell, Albon, Gasly and Tsunoda. They're all on other videos though, so I'll post a link to them and you can go check those out. I won't go into any detail here. We also had a sprint race this weekend. So Friday was qualifying, sprint race was on Saturday, and then Sunday was our full race. I do have a sprint race explanation video, which again I will post a link to somewhere on the screen right now. If you want to go check that out. I'm not going to dive into the details of what a sprint race is or anything like that here. Go check that video out for that kind of stuff. We also saw Robert Kubica back in the car as well in Alfa Romeo. Kimi Raikkonen is still out with COVID right now, so Kubica takes his place for the second race in a row. Qualifying was interesting. Obviously it was the qualifying for the sprint race, but everybody was giving it their all, absolutely. It seemed really strong overall for both Mercedes and McLaren, so they just seemed to be flying around the circuit. We had the usual problem though of everybody having to give and receive tows. Obviously Monza, it's got so many long straights that giving or receiving a tow is such a powerful thing for your lap time. We saw a strong result for the Mercedes in the end, with Bottas taking pole, or not pole, but sprint race pole, and then Hamilton behind him with Verstappen rounding out the front three. Both the McLarens were right behind them though. It's a strong day for them. And it was a strong day again for Antonio Giovinazzi. That man is racing for his career right now in Q3 once again. What a blinder. It's actually a very interesting tactical play by Mercedes with regards to qualifying in the sprint race, because Bottas was taking a new power unit at this race, so he was going to start at the back of the grid regardless what happened in qualifying and in the sprint race. For the full race he was going to start at the back, but they used him to qualify high and then take that into the sprint race to try and deny Verstappen points. No, because obviously the sprint race offers points for first, second and third, so if Bottas takes one of those places, that's points out of Verstappen's tally, and then Bottas drops to the back of the grid for the full race. So it's a bit tactical there from Mercedes. I quite liked that actually. It was interesting. In the sprint race, everybody got off the line well, except Lewis Hamilton, who was the big loser at the start. He got away poorly and got swamped all the way down to 5th. We also saw the typical contact we see at Monza's first corner. There was a few bumps, a few scrapes. Gasly touched the back of Ricciardo's tyre, which caused him to break his front wing. And then that front wing went under his tyres. Oh, it's always horrible when that happens. Which caused him to go skidding off into the gravel and hit the barriers. Luckily, it wasn't a big one, but it did cause a safety car on lap 1 of the sprint race. There wasn't too much action, to be honest, in the sprint race. The best scrap we had though was between Norris and Hamilton for 4th place. Norris was able to handle any pressure Hamilton could throw at him, and he knew that Hamilton would not make a risky dive, because obviously this is the championship on the line for Hamilton right now. He wasn't going to do anything too risky. Norris used that to his advantage and kept him behind. Well played, both those lads. A lot of eyes were also on Perez for the sprint race. He qualified fairly low down the grid, so everybody was expecting him to make moves and cut through the field, right? But that is not what happened. He got stuck behind traffic and just really never kicked on, which was a real shame to see. But in the end, Bottas won the sprint, but then drops to the back of the grid for the full race, so did not take pole position for the full race, which meant Verstappen was promoted to pole from his 2nd place in the sprint. Ricciardo was 3rd in the sprint, promoted to 2nd, and Norris promoted to 3rd. Hamilton started the race in 4th. For the race itself, unfortunately AlphaTauri's bad luck in the sprint race absolutely carried over to the regular race. Tsunoda didn't even take part in the race, and Gasly started from the pit lane after they'd done their best to put his car back together, but it wasn't to be. He retired after 5 laps. There's some interesting strategy choice out there as well for the start of the race. The 2 Mercedes cars started on the hard tyres, with pretty much everyone else starting on the mediums. That was a very interesting tactical decision, and it kind of meant that we expected the Mercedes to go longer into the race than, for instance, the Red Bulls. And as the race got underway, the run down to the first corner was a dream for every neutral. Ricciardo took the lead from Verstappen, which meant McLaren were leading a race, and Ricciardo was leading a race ahead of Max Verstappen, which was fantastic to see. It spiced it all up. It was great. Behind them, Hamilton was very aggressive, took third, came up for Verstappen as well, tried to take second, but they touched, and Hamilton took a short trip over the escape road, which meant Norris could get that third place back. Hamilton was back down into fourth. There was also a touch between Sainz and Giovinazzi, resulting in Giovinazzi hitting the barrier and losing his front wing. He did manage to keep the car going, but there was a virtual safety car for a short while. Giovinazzi did actually get a penalty for that incident as he was rejoining the track unsafely. That was kind of all of our first lap incidents out of the way. You know how it is in Monza. We saw Bottas cutting through the field in this first stint, coming from the back of the grid, taking one at a time, cutting through the field. Oh, that was brilliant to see. There was also fantastic fights between Verstappen and Ricciardo for the lead, and Hamilton and Norris for third place. All the while dueling those two. It was brilliant to see an actual battle up front. But this is where the drama really started. Danny Ric pits on lap 23, releasing Verstappen into the lead. Then Verstappen goes to cover it off the very next lap. He comes in, has his stop, but it's so poor. Red Bull, usually the pit stop specialists, take 11 seconds for Verstappen's stop, and he comes out in 10th place. While all that was happening and the cameras were focused on that, we actually had Hamilton overtake Norris on the track, which I'm gutted we didn't get to see real time because that was like an ongoing battle that had been going for 20 odd laps. So it would have been nice to see that, but that meant Hamilton was now in the lead of the Grand Prix. That also triggered Norris to come into the pits. After all, he wasn't going to catch up to Hamilton and pass him again, so he came into the pits and he came out crucially ahead of Verstappen. Hamilton also came into the pits, obviously reacting to Norris's pit stop there. Slightly slow stop for him, 4.2 seconds, which is unusual for Mercedes, who are usually quite good as well, but certainly not as bad as Verstappen's. But then the real incident occurred. Hamilton comes out of the pit lane onto the racetrack, ahead, takes that first corner. Verstappen was coming down the pit straight, obviously he's gunning for it now. He's angry, he's upset that the team has cost him so much time, and they have a big collision. Hamilton doesn't leave any space, and Verstappen is right there, and he hits a sausage curb and goes up on top of Hamilton's car. Undoubtedly, the halo has saved Hamilton's life in this incident, as Verstappen's car is perched on top of Hamilton's, and there is a wheel touching Hamilton's helmet. Unbelievable. And amazing to think the halo can actually hold a whole car's weight on it as well. Fantastic stuff there. The health and safety with that one was brilliant. I'm sure the incident itself will be debated by everyone for a long time. It's just another flashpoint in this red hot season, which is seeing some fantastic battles at the front that we should all enjoy. Like, this is a championship battle, one that we've not had in a long time. Fantastic to see, and let's try and remember that as we're all fighting in the comments, eh? After the race, Verstappen was awarded a 3-place penalty at the next race, as he was deemed predominantly at fault by the stewards for the incident with Lewis. Red Bull have already said they will not be challenging this. They are just going to take the penalty. To be honest, my take on it is that I'm just glad Hamilton's okay, because that could have been far worse than it was. Anyway, back to the race. That brought the safety car out, so everyone who hadn't pitted at that point comes diving in. This elevated Charles Leclerc to 2nd place and Perez to 4th. They were really the big winners out of this situation. Of course, the McLarens who had just pitted stayed out, so Daniel Ricciardo was leading the race again and Norris up to third. At the restart, Norris showed no fear and managed to take Charles Leclerc at the restart, leading to a McLaren 1-2 in the race at this point. But there was still a threat to them. Bottas was continuing his charge, and the battle between him and Perez was fascinating because they were both in contention for the race win. They really were. Bottas was storming on his medium tyres whilst everyone around him was on the hard tyres, and he only got halted when he got to Perez. He just couldn't get past him. His tyres were kind of going off at a faster rate, so he just got held up. I'm sure if he'd managed to get past Perez quickly, he probably would have gone on to win this race. Perez himself got a 5-second penalty for gaining an advantage when going off track whilst fighting Leclerc for his place. That was added at the end of the race, but it did mean that he was no longer battling for the lead as well, because he would never be able to pull out that kind of gap over the McLarens. And that meant that McLaren were heading to their first win of the season, their first win in so long, the first 1-2 of the season, and it's with McLaren. Oh, amazing, amazing stuff. So Daniel Ricciardo's last time leading a Grand Prix was 2018 in Abu Dhabi. His last win was Monaco in that same year, and he's come home to take a win for McLaren. Brilliant stuff. Norris came in second as well, his best result in F1, and there was wild celebrations. Perez finished the race in third on the track, but he dropped down to fifth due to that time penalty. So Bottas was the one who got promoted to third. So fair play to Bottas as well. Back of the grid to third. That's a brilliant race. Both Ferraris had a strong race too at home in Monza, finishing 4th and 6th. And something that's flown really under the radar with all the excitement about McLaren is that Russell scored more points for Williams, coming home in 9th. 3 times this season. Of course, we saw wild celebrations on the podium as well. We got to see a shoey for the first time in a long time with Ricciardo. Lando Norris and Zach Brown also did one. Fair play to those guys. Bottas did not take part. I can't imagine he's too fond of it. But fair play. Like, that was an amazing race. What is it about Monza? First it was Gasly last year. Now it's Ricciardo this year. There's something in the air in Italy, and boy, I wish we could have more races like that. Driver of the day undoubtedly has to go to Ricciardo. He's bounced back. He had a disappointing start to the season, but after the summer break he's been a new man, and this kind of caps it off in the best way possible. Anyway, what did you guys think of the race? Are you happy to see McLaren and Ricciardo doing so well? And what do you think about that incident between Hamilton and Verstappen? Let me know in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next one.